Hello and welcome back to the Failed Breakdown channel, everyone. Today is Thursday, December the 11th, and we're going to be talking about a couple of trades. One that happened in the evening session, so from Wednesday evening at 10:30 Eastern Time at the 68.30 level, and then I'll touch on a backtest that happened shortly after the open. As ever, following Adam to the best of my abilities, and that's what I'm talking about here. The method he teaches, I'm not an expert. I'm learning something every day, just like you guys. So I would highly recommend getting all this information directly from the source. Go check him out. Okay, let's get into the charts. Okay, so here we are on the 4-hour. This is obviously the day after FOMC, and right on this chart right now, it's about half an hour before the close on Thursday afternoon. So obviously we had FOMC yesterday. We had a very nice failed breakdown here in the morning of, 68.35 level that allowed us to get long ahead of FOMC and then ride through the chop, the reclaim of 68.68, and then the extension up to the top of the range and ultimately breaking out of the range. But then starting to drift back in, putting in a failed breakout at the high here, and then starting to drift back into the range, into the close yesterday. But nevertheless, we're still up at the top of the range, and it felt like we finally might move away from this 68.15 to 68.93 consolidation. But right off the open yesterday, we put in a small gap down, weren't able to close that gap, and then just started selling off. And by the time we got to about 10 o'clock, it really started accelerating, just cut through all the levels, started knifing down, and then ultimately put in yet another failed breakdown of this 68. Obviously, we were looking at the new low here at 68.30 at this point, but put in a lovely failed breakdown here at 68.30. So that's where we find ourselves. We've traversed the range a couple of times now after the pretty difficult chop on Monday and grinding down on Monday and choppiness on Tuesday, coiling inside the range. So we've now whipped up, down, and then all the way back up to the top today. So let's get into the lower time frames and take a look at the failed breakdown, and then also where the back test occurred. And then I'll pull up the execution platform and we'll take a little bit of a closer look. I'm not sure I'll replay it, but let's see. So here we are on the this 15-minute chart. So this was the little gap down here at the open and just started fading. And the first level of interest was going to be that the upper supports from kind of that inner balance range, which was the 65 to 68 level, and Adam had that down in his trade plan to watch out for. One of those levels you can potentially bid it directly, but still, when we're bidding directly, we want to kind of read the reaction. I'll talk about that a little bit later, and potentially ways to think about that in respect to this level. But there really wasn't a reaction here, and in fact there was just an acceleration. So already at this point the sell was a decent rate, I would say, for that time of day. And then it just started accelerating. We got the scary flush for the final 20, 30 points down. Actually, it was more than that, really, wasn't it? Because we had, from this point here, the 50s down to the 15, so 35 points. That final 35 points happening in 15 minutes or so. Bounced very quickly. There was a level. I think there was a level down here. Was it 18 or something? There was a micro flush down if we scrolled back over, but I mean, you can't really, that would really be a knife catch type of trade. That's way off to the left, so I'm not going to bother trying to find it. So yeah, I think it did micro flush one of the lows from last week here, and then started the process of reclaiming and accepting the 68.30. So we had the first two key elements. We've got our significant low from yesterday, the Friday's low, kind of the gold standard. We had the nice scary flush, and then on top of that, it's come in from a long way up. So we've sold 70 points by the time we break the low, and then we we dip 15 points beneath it, so kind of an average size, mid-size flush, and then very quickly recover. And then we work on the process of acceptance, get our entry trigger, and that's all she wrote. Nothing to do for the rest of the day for me personally. If you weren't able to catch this one, I mean, this is the thing with trading the futures market and trading failed breakdowns. You kind of need to be on the charts when they trigger. Obviously, if it's completely in the middle of the night, that's not possible, but it's what the alerts are for. You know, I don't really like to be trading at 10:30 at night from my cell phone, but that's what was happening. And it was a very good setup, so worth doing. And it gave me a very easy day today and a number of members in the group as well. So yeah, let's take a quick look at this, and then we'll touch on the backtest there. Okay, here we are. I've got the replay set to 10 p.m. last night, Eastern Time, Central Time down here in the bottom right. So the flush is well underway here, and we're going to start to see the acceleration from this point through the final 30 points or so from here. You know, notice we've got the gap down that never filled. First kind of point to note, this was the 68 level, the top of the kind of the inner balance here, where Adam had said to, you know, potentially controlled sell bid, watch for a reaction. But as you can see, like, you know, both on the range and the 15-minute zero reaction at all, just kept on trucking straight through it, so nothing to do there. And then we start slicing through the inner range here and coming into our key areas of interest. And you know, this was actually the lowest level that Adam had on his trade plan as far as, you know, a planned entry. So I mean, that in itself tells you that we've come a pretty long way. If it wasn't obvious enough, you know, it's quite rare that we hit that bottom level from Adam's plan. So I've already got my danger zone here. You know, other thing to note, of course, is, you know, the bear case from the newsletter did begin below 38. So just something to be cautious of in, you know, a potential profit take level there as well if we do reclaim the 30. So a little blip as we touch the level, the prior day's low right here at 68.30, and then we just keep on moving through. Really very dramatic sell for an evening session. Okay, it's right about 10 past. So yeah, I think that's right where we wicked under. I think it was 68.18 from a few days before. I can't remember exactly. But look at that bounce, just bounced instantly. You know, for an evening session, that is very dramatic. Bounced instantly 10 points, putting in a nice V, huge wick on the 15-minute. So that's our first kind of trigger to get on high alert here. We know this is something we're looking for all the time. We've got the significant low, we've got the scary flush, and now we're starting to work on the third and final step, which is the reclaim. Obviously, the reclaim is underway here. So now we're looking to try and observe one of the three types of acceptance. So yeah, we've gone maybe just about deep enough. We might have gotten some type 1 acceptance, but in this case, we really didn't absolutely no bounce off the level from below and dip there at all. We've just gone and set a V-shaped bottom and instantly recovered. So now we're going to start thinking about either the third type or the second type of acceptance. So just work through that kind of process in your mind. I've already drawn the danger zone here. We've been getting a lot of this non-acceptance protocol recently, so I've been sort of proactively marking these as the trade is developing. So given that it's an evening session, obviously we want to be a lot more patient with the non-acceptance protocol if that's what's going to develop. So what I was looking for here at the time was for it to spend at least 5 minutes at the very least. Usually we're using kind of a 2-minute threshold, but here I was looking for at the very minimum at least 5 minutes at or around the 68.35 level. So a little bit of a sell here. I'm still running this at about 5 times speed, and it's 10:22, so about 8 minutes before it kind of triggered. I can't remember the exact time of my entry, to be perfectly honest, but it was after it dipped beneath and came back above. Just gave it a couple of minutes there and took the long, but we'll see that here in just a second. It did at the time look like to me that we were kind of right at this point. It looked like it was going to be non-acceptance protocol. I didn't really consider these dips to be sort of significant swings of type 2 acceptance. So right here, for me personally, I was just thinking we might be getting the non-acceptance protocol here. So it kind of got up there right around 25, right around 10:25, starting to hang out at the top of the danger zone. So now I'm just watching to see if it's going to hold there and lift, or if it's going to dip and give us the second type of acceptance. So just hanging tight at this point. That's been a couple of minutes right around the top of the danger zone, maybe 2 or 3 minutes there, but again, for an evening session, definitely wait a little bit longer. Okay, so we're right around 10:30 here, and you see it was about 5 minutes at the top, but then it just started to fade. Didn't hold at the top of the danger zone long enough really to warrant an entry there. Not for me anyway. So now we're dipping. The question here is, with type 2 acceptance, is the level going to hold, or is it going to test below it and then recover it? On just a personal preference, I honestly prefer where it dips below a little bit and then recovers it. Just kind of gives me something easier to gauge in terms of when I should be triggering an entry. And here we do get that a little bit. We dip under by a few points. Don't recall exactly how many, but we'll see just here in a sec. Gotten down to about 27 so far, maybe into the 26s. And then we're going to start and got down to 26, 25. So we dipped 3 and a bit points underneath. And then we're going to start the process of recovering again. And so, given that we've had that second type of acceptance, we're obviously in a high volatile environment because we've dipped, 70 points into it. You don't need to wait for the danger zone to recover here. You just want to give it a couple of minutes above the level. And trigger, for me, my trigger was around the 32. And that gave me the opportunity to take some off at 38 or around there. So, anywhere here, it's been above the level for a few minutes here now. And so anywhere there, you're clear to take the long, as far as I'm concerned. And then it gave us a nice level to level move pretty quickly, and then after that kind of chopped around for a while before getting the second profit take. For me, given I was pretty much in bed by this point, I actually just took off 90% of the first level. Didn't really want to have to worry about the 25% being risk on into the night, so I just took off 90% of the first level and left the rest of the runner to work, which is still active at the moment. Back up to where all this began in the first place, so that makes for a very easy day. One of the things I absolutely love about this strategy. So I'll just ping it up to 50 times speed just to kind of flow through the action here. So yeah, there was a little trim there. I think I actually took off at 37. You know, I'm not looking to smash it out the park in at 10:30 at night. Oh, there we go. That might have been the profit take. I can't remember exactly, but you get the idea. And then it did pop up to 42 as well. So yeah, that was that for this one. I was quite surprised the stop didn't get taken out, but obviously the stop goes below the lowest low by 3 to 5 points. So that puts it down in the 12 to 15 region, and that remains intact at the moment. So being able to, we've had some decent structure or some decent lows set in during the day session, so that's been pulled up a little bit now. Okay, I'm gonna stop this and fast forward to the back test of the 3842 level, and we'll take a quick look at that and talk about kind of what it means to and what Adam's written about as far as like reading a reaction. Okay. Okay, so here we are 15 minutes after the open in replay mode. If you're coming to the charts at this point and you missed the failed breakdown last night, the first thing to think about is what can you do from here? And at this moment, it's nothing. You need to wait for structure to build sideways and form a significant low, which we can then potentially trade around, or we need to wait for a scary flush down to some of these lower levels. And the obvious level is the 6830 level, which we've formed a cluster of lows here, 4 or 5 touches maybe overnight. Then there's obviously the overnight low down at 17, but there's also the 38 to 42, which we can look to trade potentially a backtest long off of, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Why 42 to 38? Well, they were levels from the newsletter. They were very significant yesterday, acting as support and putting in a couple of flushes beneath them, and then ultimately we lifted off 42 for the big push up right around FOMC. But then they've also formed the top of the consolidation zone overnight after the failed breakdown was put in, that we then broke out of and lifted off of. So as we come into these levels, we can start to think about looking for a reaction, as Adam often talks about. And what does that mean? Well, it means we're going to look for one of 3 things. We're going to look for price to test the level, hold precisely, then bounce to recover a nearby higher level or a nearby higher low. Obviously this isn't a failed breakdown, so we're not looking at a low. We'd just be looking at to recover a level. Or we can look for it to flush the level and then wait for it to recover this level to get long. Or finally, we can just look to see if price is going to ignore the level and blaze on through it. And obviously that's what you need to be cautious of before taking it long. But if it's going to blaze on through it, then we'll be focusing on 6830 and maybe 18 beneath it. But in this case, we actually have 2 levels kind of close to each other, the 38 and 42. So depending on which level you're looking at, you get both the first and the second option. Price tests 38 and holds precisely, and then recovers 42. That's kind of option 1. Or option 2, if you're looking at the 42 level, price flushes that a little bit and then recovers. And then, although this isn't a failed breakdown, I think you can, and these are my words, not Adam, but I think you can apply the same kind of acceptance process as a way of gauging the selling reaction there, and as a way of ensuring the sellers have run out of steam. So right now at this point, we've obviously just pushed through 42. This is running at about 3 times speed. Very scary flush. Exactly what we're looking for as failed breakdown traders. And we'll probably ideally want it to flush the 30, but we're still gauging the reaction here. And instantly there we get a nice lift, a nice 5-point lift at least. It hasn't quite got to the 38, but I would consider that a 38 test. And so now we're just looking to see if it's going to hold above 42 or not, and if it's going to put in a cycle of acceptance. So just using the 42 level here, it does actually put in, a little bit of acceptance at this level, a little bit of maybe type 2 acceptance where, we flushed it a little bit. Let me just zoom in on the range so we can see the sort of small swings going on here. So we broke the level, bounced above it by 3 points. Now we dipped below it, tested 38 precisely, and now we're lifting back above. So we starting to put in a little bit of acceptance. These swings aren't very significant, but we have had a nice high volatility flush. But it's up to you here. You can choose to then maybe apply the non-acceptance kind of buffer zone here, 5 points, and look for a hold above 57 and get in there. So that's one way of reading a reaction. But obviously, those two ways of gauging the reaction, a flush and a reclaim, or a direct test and a recovery of a higher level, we get both of those because we've got these two levels in close proximity. So right here now we're just getting to the top of the danger zone and right at 903, I think it was. So give it a couple of minutes, and then we can jump in. It's 904. Obviously we're looking to get in as close to the top of the danger zone as possible, and then take the long anywhere up here. Profit target is the next level up, so you really want to try and get in as close to 47 as you can to take profits at 52 for our level to level move. So yeah, that's just a couple of ways you can think about reading reaction, ways to avoid knife catching. So I hope that's helpful. A couple of interesting trades there. We've ripped around the rest of the day up and down quite a bit, but it's been a nice couple of days after a slow start to the week. So I think it's been fairly successful for the majority of folks in the group. Let's look forward to a good Friday. I'll catch you in the Discord and talk to you all tomorrow. Cheers. Bye.